And this is an almond miso apple scone. Well, we're making more than one scone. So almond miso apple scones. And this recipe is a delectable dessert, but it can also couple as a nutrient-rich snack that can be enjoyed any time of day. So it works well for people with cancer who have lost their appetite or have lost weight without trying. Because consuming small amounts of food often throughout the day is easier to manage or tolerate. Something we often say is we want to make every mouthful count. So this dessert or snack is a great way to get some good protein, some good calories, and some fiber. We're getting some fiber and some natural sweetness from the fruits that are added. And what we'll highlight here is we'll talk a little bit about proper storage, since that is an important element of food safety as well. And yeah, and it looks like the rest of the ingredients are ready. So we'll just head back into the kitchen with Jeremy.
Thanks, Neela. All right, so we're making these really nice scones. Decided to do something a little different. So we're sticking with this fall theme. We're using some apples, some cinnamon, some of those spices, and then we're also using a little miso paste. So it's going to have that sort of sweet and savory balance going on. So to start, we're going to start off with our dry ingredients. So we have about 300 grams of flour, all-purpose flour. You can blend this. You can do a little bit of whole wheat and all-purpose to blend it in. And then we're using a teaspoon of baking powder. And we're using 100 grams of almond flour, which is just ground almonds. Okay, and this is going to add some really nice moisture and flavor as well.
It's adding moisture, flavor, but it's also adding some great protein with the almonds. So that's awesome. And fiber.
Cinnamon. Teaspoon of cinnamon. I realized the camera was up at my face. Let's look at the ingredients. That might be more helpful.
I didn't even catch that.
All right, so we have our dry ingredients, and we're going to just combine them using a spoon here. Beautiful. Okay, we'll move on to the wet ingredients. So with the wet ingredients, we have half a cup of milk, or you can use any milk alternative. I actually have almond milk, that's what I'm going to be using, but any milk work. We're using a little bit of, you can use honey or maple syrup, about 3 tablespoons. And 1 tablespoon of miso paste. This is optional. This is just going to add a really, really nice savoriness to it. But if you didn't have miso paste or didn't want to add miso paste, I know Danielle's going to talk a little bit more about it. You don't have to add it. You can even add just like even a little pinch of salt, and that will give you a really nice sort of sweet, savory balance as well. And we're just going to whisk this together just so it mixes well.
Yeah, so miso is great for adding flavor. What Jeremy loves, the umami flavor, right? And it also does have some good nutrients. It has a great nutrient profile. However, if the immune system is low, it is a fermented product that is made with a koji starter. And the koji starter is actually contains Aspergillus oryzae fungus, and it's a probiotic strain, but it also can be a concern if your immune system is low. So only if your immune system is low and you've been told to avoid certain fermented foods, I would say go with a different option for this recipe. If you've been told that you're okay to have the fermented foods, then definitely you can continue with the miso.
All right, so we have our wet, we have our dry ingredients, Now we are going to grate in our fat. So we are using butter for this. We do need something that is a little more saturated for the scone. You can definitely use, they have plant-based butters as well that I've seen. So if you wanted like a vegan option, you could definitely use that. We are going for the butter here. It's a smaller amount. So we're using about half a cup. And the key here when we're making the scones is we want this to stay very cold. We don't want this to melt because that's what's going to give us a really nice flaky scone is if it stays really nice and cold. So what I like to do is I will put the butter in the freezer for like 10-15 minutes before grating it. And I'll just use a regular box grater. And this will ensure that it keeps its shape. The bigger side. And it won't melt on you because if it starts to melt, even just the warmth from your hand is going to start to make the butter melt. And you're not going to get really nice flaky.
What a great idea to use the box grater. I would never think of that.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So you can definitely cut it up into cubes, but I find this to be a little more uniform and a little bit easier, especially if it is chilled, butter is chilled. And again, you can mark it. I'm still using the stick, so I just marked where half a cup is. Now, if you did want to stay away from the butter altogether, I mean, you can use another fat. You can definitely use olive oil. You're just not going to get the flakiness that you would from butter. And we don't usually use a lot of butter in our recipes, once in a while. All right. So we have our butter in the box grater. We're going to put right into our dry ingredients. Try to gently get all of the remaining from the box grater in there. And then, so you can see, I'll show you the dry really quick with the butter in there. And then with the same box grater, we're going to use an apple and we're going to run an apple through it. You can use any apple, any of your favorite apples. This is a Fuji apple, but we sell tons of local apples in Ontario.
Fuji is one of my favorites.
Okay.
Honey Crisp is out as well. So yeah, great time to get into apples in Ontario for sure.
Honey Crisp seems to be the darling apple. Everyone wants the Honey Crisp.
It's the darling apple.
Yeah, everyone loves.
I suppose for this recipe, any apple that's on sale is going to work, would you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you're getting the antioxidant or the healthy phytonutrient, right? Phyto, again, we've talked about it. Phyto is the Greek root for plant. So a phytonutrient is a nutrient that comes from plants. And the big phytonutrient in apples is polyphenols.
Okay, so grated apple in there. If you did not want to grate an apple, or maybe you live in there where there's no apples, then you can definitely use like an apple sauce as a substitute. That would definitely work.
Great idea. So for people who may, get fatigued in the kitchen, instead of grating their own, they can use the applesauce, and also it's good if people need lower fiber.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. All right, so we have our flour, butter, apple mixture. I'm going to mix that through. I'm using a spoon. You can definitely use your hands, but your hands are going to start to soften the butter. And because we've grated the butter into all these fine little pea pieces, you don't really need too much work from your hands. Like if it was cubed, then you would use your hands to sort of break them up a little bit smaller. But because it's already pretty small, I'll just make sure it's mixed through. And we should be good to go. We'll add our wet ingredients. And mix that through. And again, the key here is I just want everything to get combined. I don't want to do too much kneading or overwork of the gluten in the flour, because then it'll just get a little too tough. We want this to be really nice and flaky. So using the spoon again, just to gently combine everything. Once it's mostly combined together, even if you have dry patches, that's okay. We're gonna put a little bit of flour on my hands. And we're gonna throw it onto your work surface. In this case, I'm using a little baking sheet. I'm just gonna make it right on here with my parchment. Again, just bring everything together. So a little bit of that dry flour. Just use your hands and just gently incorporate any of those loose bits into the dough. But again, I don't want to overwork it too much. So from this point, I will just gently flatten it to about an inch thickness. It gets a little sticky, just dust it with a little bit of flour. You can use a rolling pin. Just do this quickly. Actually, if I was doing it at home, a rolling pin, if you have it handy, would be really helpful. That way you're not transferring more heat from your hands than necessary. Okay, we have our mount, and then you can cut it into your shapes. I guess you could make one giant scone just like that.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. I was also thinking about the beauty of parchment paper.
Oh yeah. So I'm just using the bottom of a little glass, cutting our little circle shapes. You can do triangles.
Did you have to flour the bottom of the glass, or not necessary?
Oh, the glass?
Yeah, the glass.
As long as you have a little dusting on top, then you should be okay. I don't want to incorporate too much flour, like more than that necessary.
Okay, okay.
Right? If you find that it is sticking, then yeah, sure, add a little bit. But these are coming out pretty nice and easy. Beautiful. All right. Put a shape, and then those little odd and end pieces you can just construct. Roll up little ball. Again, try not to overwork it too much. Flatten it out. And these we're going to bake just like this in a 400-degree oven for about 10 minutes. Okay, 10 to 12, depending on your oven. You're looking for a little bit of golden brown. If you've added like honey, obviously, that will start to caramelize quickest. So it'll get a little bit darker versus if you added sugar, it won't caramelize as quickly. Keep an eye on them. We'll get a little bit of color to be in that 10 to 12 minute mark. And when it's done,
Ta-da,
Scones, delicious
beautiful.
apple
Beautiful.
miso scones. Break one of these open. Just so you can see the
Excellent.
inside. Really, really nice and flaky and still a little bit moist. Super tasty, super delicious. I will likely not eat all of these, so these will be fantastic to store and to freeze. My preference would be to obviously let them cool to room temperature, transfer them to a freezer safe bag, Ziploc bag, and then pop them into the freezer to freeze till solid.
And then this type of product, it's probably also portable, so you can take it out of the freezer and take it with you. It can thaw while you're carrying it to the hospital if you have to come to a hospital for treatment, and have it as a snack here.
Yeah, warm it up in the microwave for a quick reheat too, as well. I prefer these nice and warm. It's a little bit warm, which is really nice.
Ah, okay.
But they
With
are
some cream? How do you have it? Just
I
like
guess
that?
would be the
Yeah.
English way to do it. Yeah, I would probably dunk it in like some tea. Maybe that's probably blasphemy.
There we go.
Breaking all the rules, but yeah, there you have it. Our apple miso scones, almond scones, and that wraps up another community connections class. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Again, a massive thank you and shout out to Marcy and Cheryl from Health Canada for their presentation, their wonderful presentation on food safety earlier. And again, all of the links to some of the Health Canada resources, any of the other resources that they provided, and anything that Daniela and I covered today, we will make sure that we include them in the description notes in the video. We'll also include them in the nutrition notes section on our website if you are looking at the recipes that way. But other than that, join us for next month, November
16.
16. Thank you.
16. Yeah.
Yeah, for our next class. Again, if you subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the notification bell, it will let you know when we do have an upcoming class. But yeah, until then, Daniela, have a wonderful month. I will see you sooner, but
Yeah.
We'll see everyone else next month.
Yeah. Happy Halloween. Can we say that? Okay.
Good,
Bye,
good.
Jeremy.
Take care. Bye-bye.